listeners, and welcome to another episode of Black Woman Be Well, aka BWBW. I am your host, Jennifer Tomlinson, and joining me today is Saguinn Johnson, mental health counselor and owner of Safe Haven Therapy. And this is her second time on the show. Welcome, Saguinn.
Good morning, everyone.
I want to give a special shout out to our guest technical producer in the house, Mr. John Q, the one and only, aka. Want me to do some AKAs for you? No? But anyways, thank you for filling in for Miss Shania, who is on break for today. And today's episode is a follow-up to a previous episode we did with Saguinn called Falling in Love with Potential. If you haven't checked it out already, I would highly recommend that you add that in your queue next. It was a good conversation. We had my sister in the house. Y'all know Claudine's been on the show before. And my best friend Jessica, who's a reoccurring person as well. And we discussed the complications that come with dating and being in toxic relationships. So this episode is a follow-up to that because we just didn't get to everything like we wanted to. So today we're going to focus on the breakup part. And that's why the episode is called Post-Breakup Breakdown. So what do you do when you're, after a breakup? You found the courage to leave someone, but now you're broken during the breakup process. So how do you pick up the pieces for a healthier life after? So before we get into that, though, I do want to backtrack just a little bit to catch people up who didn't listen to that episode. When we say falling in love with potential, what does that actually mean? So, Saguinn, I'm going to ask you that. If you could just summarize that for our listeners. What do you think we were talking about in that episode when we said falling in love with potential?
Well, I think there's basically two aspects to falling in love with potential. One is you can meet someone and you can have a vision of where you see them going, or either they've told you where they plan to go, what their goals are, and you kind of hang in there because of what you see in the future for them, not really focusing on what they are in the present. And that could be a good or a bad thing, because if you meet someone and let's say they're in school studying to be a lawyer or a doctor, and you actually see them going through the motions to be, there's nothing wrong with that, because we normally don't meet people and be at a place where we've arrived and we're everything that we're going to be in our life at that point. So we're all working towards something. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. But if you meet someone and you're seeing characteristics of them being dishonest, or maybe even verbally, maybe even physically aggressive towards you, and they're telling you, I'm going to get help for this, or I'm going to work on this, I'm going to get better when it comes to this, and you're saying, okay, I'm seeing them being that person, so I'm going to stick in there because this is going to change. So this potentially is going to get better. That's a lot different.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's what we kind of focused on in the last episode, is just the toxicity. How do you say it? Toxicity.
Yes.
Falling in love with, so to your point, a man with vision, or a partner with vision, and clear steps, and they articulate those steps to the vision, and you see the work ethic and the character of the person. You see the potential there, and it's a positive potential that you can kind of get your feet grounded in. I think what we kind of focused on, and what's dangerous, is when you see their potential but they don't see it in themselves.
Right.
And so you fall in love because you know what the person could be, and you kind of throw things their way, like, all right, let me. So I'm kind of giving my own testimony here, but you're taking them to apply for college, or you're taking them to the bank to open up a bank account, or teaching them how to repair family relationships. Like, you're trying to help them be the person you see in them, but they don't see it in themselves.
Right.
And so we stay in bad relationships or toxic relationships because we're focused on the potential and not what is right in front of us. And that's such, like you said, it's such a dangerous game because, like you said, what if they are unhealthy or they're abusive or they're doing things that are not good or they have characters that are actually, harming you, but you're just staying in it because you hope that they change.
And it's basically don't just focus on one aspect. Like if you're focused on where they're going career-wise or something like that, but you're neglecting how they treat you or how they treat others, there has to be a holistic view
of the
when
person.
you're dating. Yes.
That's so important. The other thing that we didn't get to talk about either, we kind of touched on it at the end that I really wanted to bring up again, and that's why I invited you back again. We spent so much time, talking about giving examples of poor relationships and how we were in it. And I kind of brought up the point that some of us are in relationships that are unhealthy because we've never seen what a healthy relationship actually looks like. Like maybe we were in families where we just didn't see that modeled for us, or we ourselves just never experienced what a healthy relationship looks like, whether it's, platonic or, in a relationship or whatever. And so I wanted to really, and I know Jessica and Claudine told their stories, but I really wanted to follow up with you. If you could tell the listeners some characteristics of a healthy relationship so that those that are in an unhealthy relationship and can't see it for what it is might be able to hear from an expert, what are the good characteristics of a healthy relationship that allows for growth? Okay.
Well, there's several things that we all say we obviously know, like you want to have respect, for one another. But I think that a lot of people water down the word respect to where everybody has their different definitions of what respect is for them. Obviously there needs to be trust. There is absolutely no relationship, whether it's a relationship between a man and a woman, a child and a parent, sibling. No relationship is healthy without trust, period. So if there's not that and mutual respect and then communication, we always hear about, but communication is so many more levels than just, we have so much in common and we can laugh together but it's okay when we disagree. How do we disagree? Because we're going to disagree. So when you're in a relationship and you say we never disagree, then someone's not being real in that relationship because you're going to disagree. You're two different people from two different walks of life, two different genders. There's going to be disagreement, so that's just, but how do we disagree? Am I listening to your point of view, or am I just all about what my point of view is, and you need to hear me and you need to agree with me, because it's okay to agree to disagree on certain things. So it's a mutual, I respect and I feel for you enough that whatever you need to say to me, even if I disagree, I want to hear it.
It's like the empathy part, right?
Exactly.
Like being empathetic and actually being able to feel what the other person is feeling after listening to them.
And what you just said, empathy, is probably one of the things that I feel relationships lack the most, because I think so many people don't know how to be empathetic.
Yeah. We don't even know how to access our own emotional selves, let alone to try and gauge somebody else's. So it's really difficult. I know Claudine in the last episode focused on communication and how important it was for her and her marriage to my brother-in-law. And to your point just a while ago, I wonder how much our communication is, the way we communicate is a product of our lack of trust in each other. Like, I'm not going to say what I'm going to say because I don't feel safe.
Right.
Or I'm going to text instead of talking because I'm fearful, because I don't trust the way they'll respond.
Right.
Or I'm going to be super emotional and angry in your face because I anticipate that you're going to lie, whatever you say to me. So it's kind of like interesting. Like, it made me think what you just said. It made me think about the way we communicate, particularly in relationships, might be because of that lack of trust we have in people in general, or with our partners. So.
But the examples you just gave, like when you just said, I don't trust, so either I'm not going to say what I really want to say that.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Be authentic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll tell clients all the time when they say, well, I don't say this because I'm afraid of the reaction, or I don't do this because I don't, well, say that, because that's still communicating.
Yeah.
If there's a barrier, then just talk about the barrier. Let's talk about why you shut down or why you walk off when a conversation gets to a certain place and you don't want to hear anymore. Because the last thing that you want to do in communicating, if a couple finds themselves communicating about something and they keep coming back to that same topic like a revolving door, that means they never finished the conversation.
Right.
And conversations need to come to some type of resolution. I'm not saying at the end of that means everybody's happy, but it has to have some type of resolution, or it's going to continue to come back up. And most conversations fall off before they ever get to anything looking like resolution.
Or people just like ignore. And I'm sure it's easy to just well, okay, whatever it is, what it is. And that's how you keep bringing it back up again, because you don't want to deal with it, and you never resolve it, like you said. Yeah.
But if it has to do with behaviors in the relationship, then the behaviors just keep happening. Because it's not even always people in a relationship intentionally trying to hurt each other. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not even them being intentional with it, but because the conversation is not being fully had.
Yeah. Because it'd be like, to your point, to behavior, like, okay, I'm going to communicate, I don't want you to do this. And then the other person gives an excuse, like, why they should. And then it just turns into an argument.
Right. And
then you don't resolve it.
Right.
And then the behavior happens again. And you say to you're communicating a clear boundary, but you're also not doing anything. Like, you're not... Right. You're just saying it, like, what's the consequence, or what's the resolve? Or in a lot of ways, I think it's important to articulate too, like, instead of, I don't want you to do this, the way in which you do this impacts me, or that's such a wordy sentence because I'm an academic, but when you do things, or when you do this, it impacts me in this way. And it hurts, or whatever, to like share the emotional part instead of like the command, like, don't do this.
It has to be I feel. Because it's it's always less threatening to say, even if you want to get across to someone they've done something wrong, or you feel, I feel that this is what's going on, or I feel this when you do that. You see what I'm saying? Because that doesn't feel accusatory.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So, because most people are defensive. Yeah. So if you come across a certain way, their defense mechanisms are going to pop up, and then already the conversation is going to be combative.
And that's a different level of accountability too, because if I share with you, I feel this way when you do this, and I would like for you not to do this or whatever, and the person still responds with excuses or that kind of like downplay of your feelings, like you shouldn't be feeling like feeling like that. And I always tell people, like, you're allowed to feel however you want to feel. Right. So be wary of people that tell you don't feel that way as a resolution to your problem. But if you say how you feel to someone and their response is to be defensive or to tell you not to feel that way, now you can hold them to a different standard because you clearly articulated the way it impacts you,
Exactly.
So it's more empowering, like you said, to come from that perspective, to say how you feel instead of saying, don't be out all night. It's like, I'm allowed to be all night with my boys. It's like, it's not going to resolve anything,
And for what you were just talking about, if it's the beginning stages of a relationship, that's something to examine. If you're talking to someone and you're talking about how you feel and your feelings are being discounted, You need to look at that because you can't just think, oh, well, if we stay together longer, then that'll get better.
Yep.
No, that's something you need to explore early on. Because there's way too many relationships out there lasting way too long that should not be.
Yep. So for me, in my last relationship, there were clear red flags in the beginning. And we kind of talked about this in an episode too, about how we dumb down our intuition. And as Black women, it's just, we have like these, it's almost powerful the way we can just wake up in the middle of the night feeling a feeling like something ain't right. And you text somebody and you realize, you know, it's just crazy how amazing our intuition is. And I was completely dumbing it down, nulling it because I was seeing things or feeling things that didn't feel right, but listening to the rationale.
Right.
And for me, it was because I come from this really loyal place. Like, if I love, I'm going to love 110%. If I say I'm with you, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to be with you through the rough and the good and the bad and everything and hold you down. Like, I just have that kind of like mentality. It's probably a product of my music I listen to. I don't know. But, and also, honestly, that comes from growing up in church, like hearing what unconditional love is and learning from our spiritual leaders to model Jesus Christ. Like, okay, well, Jesus loved me so much that he saved a wretch like me.
Right. And
me living this carnal life, like living in the actual physical world with that level of divine love, like I want to love you unconditionally, no matter what. And it wasn't until I know I said this before on the show that when my mother became my friend in my 30s, and I'm dealing with my breakup after, you know, sticking in this long relationship for like 3 years off and on, dealing with foolishness and lies and taking them back and whatever, and saying things like, well, I'm going to be here always because I got your back and we can work through it. Now I'm dealing with the breakup part, and I'm talking to my mom. I'm like, Mom, you know, I just want to be like you and Dad and just experience unconditional love. And my mom was like, you can't love like that. That's Jesus. You're not Jesus. He's like, you don't think that me and your father have boundaries with each other? Like, of course I love your father, but if he does something that don't make sense, there's a boundary, and that's a condition.
Yeah.
So it's okay for us to have conditions with each other. I didn't know that. I was out here, real talk, in my 20s, thinking that I could find that when I fell in love, it was going to be unconditional love, the way that Jesus loves us. And I think that's dangerous because, you know, it's not that, so there's like a polarity because you could be like me, totally unconditional and just be taken advantage, or you can be too conditional.
Right,
which is dangerous too. So you have to leverage the needs of both. There are times where there's place for grace and forgiveness, but there should be room for also standards and conditions and boundaries. Like there's just so much you can do. Yeah. And I didn't know that. I honestly did not know that. And that's how I would, like you said, get stuck in these conversations. I think I'm communicating, but I'm not. I just stick around, thinking that'll get better. And I really believed in the person and falling in love with the potential of the person that I just stuck around for a long time because I thought that's what unconditional love was.
Okay. So from your point of view, your sticking around had more to do with you were trying to emulate unconditional love.
Mm-hmm. And I thought that was the love my parents had for each other.
Okay. But a lot of people out there, it's more from a standpoint of what they don't already have or believe in themselves before they even get into the relationship.
Okay.
Because if you don't feel a certain way about yourself and you don't feel whole, you know, I know it's very romantic to say, he completes me and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, I guess it depends on how you look at it. But if you're looking at it like he completes me because I'm just a half a person without him, then no.
That's so dangerous.
Yeah, but if you mean it in he completes me, you know, I'm good, but now with him, my life is so much better, then okay. But I don't think that's how a lot of people mean it. I think they mean it because there's so many people out there, but not just women, men that don't know how to be by themselves.
Yeah.
And I mean completely by themselves. Not, I'm not in a committed relationship, but I got a couple of people on the side that no. I mean, completely
alone,
and just really understand and get to know and be really good with who you are without anyone waiting in the wings.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people that are good with that.
I mean, the wholeness comes with having a strong sense of self and that self-esteem part and self-worth. And to your point, yeah, that was definitely a part of it too. Like I didn't have a sense of self. And we have to give ourselves credit because I thought I did. You don't know what you don't know. But yeah, I went into that situation. Now I know, but at the time I realize now that I was looking for missing pieces.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I thought I could sustain it by just unconditional love. You got to love like the Father loved us, and I think it's really just dangerous.
It is. Because you could be giving that to someone who does not
I'm going to waste your time with it. Absolutely. That's exactly what happened. What your comment made me think of, Iyanla Vanzant. I keep quoting her on this show. I don't know. Y'all probably gonna laugh at me, but I'm gonna say, she made a comment that was like, how you gonna be with somebody if you don't like being by yourself? Like, you don't even like being by yourself. What makes you think somebody's gonna like being with you?
That makes sense. Yeah.
So, for girls and guys, like, are we really comfortable and confident by ourselves? I don't think most of us are.
And it doesn't mean that you have to have completely arrived and be just so okay with every single aspect of yourself and not be working on anything. It doesn't necessarily mean that, but it just means, being okay with yourself enough to where you know what you will and will not compromise on. Because there's a good compromise and then there's a negative compromise. Compromising in a relationship to come together and have a healthy thing going is one thing, but compromising, whether it's morals or things that you've told yourself and you've made the commitment that you will or will not do or will and will not put up with, if you're not sure in yourself, how do you hold on to those things? So I mean it from that aspect as well, just knowing what you will and will not put up with, what you want and do not want before you get into anything, and knowing that no matter what he looks like or what he says to you or what kind of money he has or what, you're not going to compromise those things for anybody.
Yeah. I feel like those are the great reflective things that we should be doing after a breakup. I found myself doing that after my last relationship, like, officially ended, kind of just really thinking about who I am as a person. And then, like you said, like, what am I, factoring who I am as in my age as a person and what I do in a career, like, what am I willing to put up with and what am I no longer willing to tolerate? And I spent a lot of time reflecting on that. And the episode is called Post Breakup Breakdown. So for those that are in that situation where they're broken up, and it's a devastating feeling. I mean, you question your womanhood sometimes. You question your beauty and your self-worth and the heartache, and you think about all the time you wasted. I mean, and being in that brokenness, what are some other things you can think about or reflect on, similar to the things you just shared? What are some other things that we should be doing in our breakdown period to kind of, learn from the experience or come out better, instead of wallowing in it and just being in despair?
Well, I mean, you're definitely going to have that initial period of feeling however you're going to feel. And I definitely recommend allowing yourself to feel for some period of time. It doesn't, no long drawn out period of time, but whether you need to cry a lot or vent angry feelings or just, definitely get that out. Also just kind of look at the relationship in all its honesty, whether whatever he did, you did, because there's almost always not just one person that brought negativity to a relationship, regardless of who broke up with who. Kind of examine what your part was in that relationship, because you want to focus on what you don't want in the next person, but you also want to focus on what you don't want to be with the next person.
Yeah. I think that was my aha moment, because I'm like, because you go through the emotional period, like I was crying, and you do the whole anger, like he wasn't nothing, and but then I kind of was coming out of my head a little bit, and I was like, all right, if 80% of this was his fault, it was a good 20% that I brought on myself. And like, where headspace was I at?
Right.
Or what emotional space was I at to allow that kind of energy in my life? And what did I do to allow someone to keep doing this?
Right.
In the episode with just one of the guys, one of the guests, Jonathan, he mentioned, you have to check bad men. Like, if they're going to be a dog, they're going to keep being a dog because you allow them to be a dog, and that was something I had to learn too. Like, okay, well, for me, I allowed it to happen. And I was therefore teaching him that behavior, that it was okay. So I'm not going to say I was 50-50 or something. Like, you took the bulk of that, sir, whoever you are out there. But yeah, you have to recognize your place in it too.
And so, like what you just said, even if it was you just allowing things to happen, because somewhere along the way, we know we have those thoughts. I shouldn't be allowing this to happen. But then again, we start to make excuses for those things. So after the breakup, it's like, okay, think about those things. Think about what it is. What is it about me that made me allow this with this person? Am I still that person? Would I allow this in the future?
Yeah.
And if you don't know the answers to those, if you're not concrete on, it is not time to get into anything else. It's not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you ask yourself the real honest, hard-hitting questions, and you can't answer honestly that you will not be that person, then you have no business getting in another relationship at that point in time. And that's, people get into stuff too fast. Now, depending on the nature of the relationship, if there was abuse and different things like that going on, I definitely recommend someone getting some help and talking to someone else, because there are certain things that you can go through in a relationship that just some time before you get in another one is not enough. Some things you may need some extra help,
extra support.
Yes, to really get through. I always think it's a good idea to talk to wise couples that you may know. They may be few and far between, but they're out there that truly have, a really healthy, good relationship, and just learn from what they do and don't do. I'm not saying you have to emulate every single thing that someone says, but it's good to learn. I mean, so many people come from backgrounds and families that they didn't see what good relationships look like. So,
and we don't get a lot like in the media either.
We don't. So if there's couples that you can identify in your community, in your church, or what, sit down and talk with them.
Talk with them. And when you talk, it doesn't have to be a play-by-play, like, I'm going to copy what you did, because every relationship is different. But it's just about engaging the discussions with people that have been in healthy relationships so that you can analyze what they're saying and then apply it in your unique situation. But I think sometimes people mess it up and say, well, they did it this way, so I'm going to do it that way. I mean, that's not the point of it. It's just learning and engaging in a conversation to learn.
Yep. Yeah. And not even just for that reason. I know for a lot of us out there, and I'm speaking to myself as well, who not only didn't grow up seeing healthy relationships in family, but even around me, period. I just didn't see it. So you can grow up and have this view of, what, does healthy relationships really exist? Right. Or do you just get in where you fit in and just hope for the best with, because you can start to think like that. So in kind of talking with couples that have it helps you believe.
Yeah.
So it's not just learning from them, but actually believing that this can happen.
Yeah.
Not just that people say it can, but
Right.
you're seeing it
Right.
living proof that
I think
it's
that's
happening.
so true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd also, what helped me too, like when Saguinn is saying like to reflect on your place in this and examine the relationship and maybe even examine your emotional state and what you're feeling. If you just think it in your head, it's too much to analyze, especially if your emotions are wrapped up in it. Sometimes it's hard to like filter through with all of it in your head. You got to write that stuff out or get it out of you. So for me, it's very cathartic to sit down and write in a journal. It's helpful for me to also go back and reread the previous post to kind of examine it with a different mindset. Like, okay, what was I thinking at that time? Or like, oh man, I was really like wilding out. Or, but not everybody likes to write. I mean, maybe Saguinn's example is like, you talk to somebody. So you find a couple that you can engage in a discourse with to help dump all that stuff out, or maybe you draw or whatever. But sometimes, to me, what really helped me was sitting down, and when it was too much in my head, I had to get it out. And then reread it to really analyze it. And a lot of us don't take that step. We just sit there in the bed in the dark, crying, overthinking everything. And when things stay in your head, they turn into something crazier than it needs to be. So I think that's a good tip for our listeners. Like, if you're in a breakup period, seeking support and help, like you said.
But I would caution, just be careful who you talk to after a breakup. Not all the people that you hang around or get advice from are one coming from a good place or going to give you good advice.
I agree.
You really have to be careful who you share your stuff with.
And they might get you more hype than you was trying to be, or put some irrational thoughts in your head. So when you said support, I was thinking like therapy.
I was saying therapy. Definitely couples that, but I'm saying even for people who, let's say, they're going to talk to a friend or someone they can fit, or even some family, we love family, but not everybody in your family is necessarily the best person. You just have to make sure that the person that you're talking to about stuff is coming from a healthy place. Yeah,
coming from a healthy place and emotionally intelligent to really listen. And like I said, not get hyped with you.
Because if you're angry and they just want to fuel your anger.
Or if you're crying and you want to stop and they just want to cry with you. So that's a good tip. Seek support, but from healthy people, people you can trust. Talking to, finding couples that are in healthy relationships and really listening to their full story, and writing things out or expressing
journaling
stuff, journaling or doing things like that,
or other things. I mean, even if you don't get it out in writing, just focusing on other things, learn a new skill, a new hobby. It might not have anything to do with the breakup, but it's something positive, and it's something that doesn't have you, because sometimes some people break up and it consumes them. Yeah. And they eat, sleep, drink the breakup. Yeah. Your life goes on.
And the worry I have and why I wanted to do this episode is so many people just end up, they're broken in the breakup, and they just stay broken. So it's like, what are you going to do during that period to at least put yourself back together so you end up, we like to use that phrase like, well, I'm bigger and better than I was before. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I get the premise of that statement. It's you're coming out of it more informed, and hopefully with the better understanding of who you are and relationships, so that in your next situation, if you're ready, you're just not coming with all of that baggage and brokenness into the next situation. So how do you come out of that what are you doing in that period? Are you learning those skills, like you said, or getting a hobby, or you're reflecting so you're not just broken for the rest of your life?
Now, if you went into that relationship broken due to brokenness that stems even further back, then that's a whole nother level of
Saguinn.
well, because a lot of people are in a relationship and they have a bad breakup, but they were broken before that relationship.
Oh, my
so
goodness.
that relationship was doomed before it even started.
Okay.
So that's on a whole nother level. And so at that point, they really need to take time for themselves.
This is why conversation is so good. You over here got me thinking about my whole life.
because for a lot of people it stems further back.
Childhood trauma, things that you've experienced.
Yeah. So at that point you're looking at your history, and then you're looking at your patterns. Because you can't blame the person that you just got out of the relationship with. You can't blame your patterns on them. So that's a lot of people's story, So at that point, now, yes, you can reflect on everything that we just said, but now you're really looking at what is this cycle? What is this pattern that I have going on in my life, whether it stems back to family patterns or what? And so now, do I want to break this? Am I trying to break this? Because if I'm not trying to break it, then either I'm going to keep going on into bad relationships, or I've said, okay, I'm just going to stay by myself and I'm going to be miserable in this place, or I'm going to break it.
Man, I don't know if anybody's going to watch any video footage of this, but if you could see my face, whew, that was a whole lot, a whole lot of truth. Man. What caught me, I'm sorry, you cannot blame your patterns on the person. You can't.
You can't.
You brought that in. And now you broke up and you're broken even more. You came in pieces. Now you're just dust. Mm-hmm. And that's that. And the work to repair that, I mean, it's going to take you a long time.
Yeah.
Well, I might have a little work, but I'm okay. I'm okay. Wow, that is so profound. Yeah. And it kind of is a good segue into the next question I had, because how do you know when you're ready to move on, or how do you know when you're ready to, to be in a new relationship?
Well, it's funny because that's a little tricky to me, because you can, if you're being honest with yourself and you know what you've overcome and you've, what I would say, put in the work, the work that it takes to get yourself to the place, whether it was counseling, whether it was all the other things that we mentioned, whether it was getting your life together, because, depending on what type of broken you are, I mean, because for some women, it's, I completely didn't even do what I wanted to do in life because I was all about you. You see, so depending on what it looks like for her, you have to, and I like writing stuff out.
Same.
So you write out your life almost like a map and put all the different areas and say, okay, in this area of my life, where am I? In this area, just put all the different aspects of yourself, whether it's, flaws in your personality that anger issues you might have, the level of distrust that you have towards people. I'm not here yet in my career. I really wanted to be married. Like just everything. And see where you're at with all of that stuff. And that's going to start to give you some type of gauge of how ready you are to be in something else. You know what I'm saying?
That's such a good tip.
Because I feel like when you look, but I'm a visual person, so when I see it laid out, because I can look at it in my mind, but it's different when I lay it out. That's why I think like vision boards and stuff like that are so powerful. Because when you see it, then you can sit there and, just analyze it and let that be your roadmap to where, okay, so this is where this is where I want to be. And when I'm here, then okay. But then there's a whole nother piece to it, because you can get a lot of these things to a certain place, but then you have that man enter your life and you start feeling triggers, because you're going to feel triggers. You're not triggered when you're not with someone. If I'm not in a relationship and I have trust issues, I'm not getting triggered by who are you talking to, or where are you, and because I'm not with anybody.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's not to say that you get to a certain place and then you get in a relationship and you're good.
You still have to deal with it.
There's still going to be things that you're going to deal with, but that's where honesty and communication and being with someone who meets you where you're at.
That's a good point.
You see what I'm saying? So you're not going to be completely
It's
there.
not all roses, like do this work, take a million years, and when you meet the person, it'll be perfectly fine. You'll still have to deal with the feelings or the triggers as they come across. Yeah. But hopefully you're in a better place to deal with them.
Yes.
That's so good, important insight. Because in the moment, I think I was like thinking, you just do your work and then you'll find the guy and it'll be all roses, but you still got to deal with it. Yeah.
Because think about it, while you're by yourself, what are you getting triggered
that's
by?
true. How are you going to be tested?
Yeah.
That's true.
And he might be doing what he's supposed to be doing. But some of that stuff, it'll flood back, because you're like, ooh, this situation kind of, okay. And then that's you being honest with him, you being open with him. Him at that point, he should know something of what, if you guys are, to that place of what you've been through, to where it's like, okay, these are things that I have had issues with in the past. People need to be open to the point where, look, I don't want to wreak any of this on you. Yeah. I don't want that to be about you.
Yeah.
Unless it really is about you. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not going to, but he needs to know that. So, so you want him to be that type of person that says, okay, I'll walk with you through this, as long as you're fair to him and you're open with him, and vice versa, because he might have his stuff too. So there's still going to be work. Because that piece of it, you're not going to really be able to fill in until there's somebody in that in that place.
I'm pausing because we might have to cut this question out, but I'm going to ask it anyway. You don't have to answer it. But I do know that you shared some of your story in our last episode, when you were kind of giving examples to the points you were making. And for our listeners don't know, but you are currently single.
I am.
Are you ready?
Am I ready to be in another relationship? I'm at a place where I don't know that I want to be in another relationship.
Okay. Ever?
So, yeah.
Oh.
I'm not saying I know. I'm not saying that I won't, but I'm really at a place where I'm okay if that doesn't ever happen again. Yeah. I know that sounds kind of, but yeah.
No, it's not. Yeah, okay.
But I'm like good by myself. I really am. I mean, I am enjoying being by myself.
Well, that I can relate to.
Yeah.
I'm having a great time being single and meeting friends and hanging out but also like just enjoying, like discovering how it feels to be by myself. I didn't think I would like it so much, like literally Miss Introvert at night, not being bothered. I kind of like that. But I do envision, like, hopefully one day meeting someone. When I see someone like you, like, you're so beautiful, so smart, so dope.
Thank you.
Great kids. So that's where the shocking part is, like, never.
Well, you know what? It may change when my kids are older and gone, maybe, but I think my focus is so on them right now.
I got you.
And there's so much going on with just us and just all the dynamics in our life right now.
Well, that makes sense.
I don't even know that I want to invite somebody.
No,
in,
that's valid.
That has something to do with it. So, yeah, it's not even really on my radar.
That might be another episode. What's in the head of somebody that's like, nah, I'm good. And is it okay to say that? I don't think we validate each other enough to lend the space to a lot, especially Black women in a Christian context, like to lend them the opportunity or the safe space to say, I don't want to be with someone.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of people think it's okay to say that.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm kind of glad that you are sharing that, and maybe that is another topic, because we don't validate each other enough with that. Like, you don't have to be with someone, and it's okay. Especially if you're self-assured, you have self-confidence, you know your self-worth, you know that you're dope. What else? You know, you got great kids. You do have great
I have kids. I've been there, done that. So, you know.
Well, maybe we'll keep that one in if you're okay with it. You got a little personal. Is that okay?
Oh, I got way personal last time.
You got way personal. I was like, oh, we going in. You know.
Hey, it's been 5 years. I've had time to, so.
I appreciate it. So we have one more question to kind of end the episode. I really want to make sure that I ask this question, because I know some of our listeners are raising daughters, and we talked about growing up broken. Even in our last episode, we talked about our childhood experiences. So for our listeners who have daughters, what advice do you have for them and how they should be raising their daughters, or what kind of conversations should they be having, or things that they should be doing to allow them to grow up really as whole as possible, so that they're not, they don't get sucked into toxic relationships or whatever?
Well, I definitely would say, obviously, letting your daughter know how beautiful she is as often as you can. And I don't mean in a way for her to grow up, all like inflated and cocky or anything, but just, you are not even just her physical beauty, but you are such a beautiful person. Yeah. I tell my daughter all the time, like at least 3 times a week, I'm like, Aria, you are so beautiful. I said, I love your personality. You are and I start listing. And she's like, Mom, But I laugh when she does that. And I say, no, I'm serious. I said, I need you to know how I feel about you. Yeah. So, I tell her she's beautiful on the outside, but I list the qualities. I tell her what I like about her. I tell her, I say, your sense of humor is just so, and you did, and I'm always letting her know. And especially when she comes home and let's say there's been something that's happened at school on the playground, or she felt left out, or, those are opportunities to teach them. Yeah. Because when things like that start to happen, those are things that affect self-esteem, whether somebody's talking about them, they feel left out, you empower them to let them know that, these things will happen, but that doesn't have to speak to who you are, how someone else is being towards you. So, between that, showing them affection, it's crazy how many homes I've gone into, like for counseling sessions, and I've talked to either children by themselves or parents by themselves, and there's no affection in the home. And I know there's families that have grown up with not a lot of affection at home, but I'm talking about never hug the child. No, I love you. None of these things, nothing at all. Like, and there are some, they're uncomfortable with even going there. Wow. But that is so important, because that is one of those safety nets from birth that, affection, embrace, your children. I love you, stuff like that, is just extremely important. Obviously for a girl, showing her how to be a woman, her getting that male figure that shows her how to be treated. We all know those are things that, they need, but unfortunately a lot of family households don't have both, So it's just a constantly reminding her who she is and who she can be, and checking in with her with how she feels about herself. these are the kind of conversations I have with her. You know, I ask her stuff like that. I make her aware of things. I make her aware of things that should not happen to her. I make her aware of what is appropriate and what's not appropriate, and how she should guard and protect herself.
Right.
Those are extremely, even if they're uncomfortable. I know there's a lot of people who are uncomfortable. They don't want to go there, but you need to go there because there's a lot of very unsafe people out there.
I think we underestimate how young we should be having those conversations. And it might be as young as you need it to be by your intuition, you know.
It has to start younger. These kids these days, in these younger grades, they're talking about things that...
Because they have access to it on their phone. So, listening to you is making me think of my inner child and what I needed. And I think there's another piece to like hearing about beauty that I missed. Because I used to hear it a lot when I was younger. Oh, you're so pretty or whatever. You know, like, especially the women in my family trying to validate me. And, but I never believed it, you know.
You never believed it when they said
I would kind of hear them and like, oh, okay. But not really like, oh, you're just saying that because you always say that. I think what it could have helped is if someone kind of helped me practice saying it myself so I can internalize it. It was just something coming at me versus me actually internalizing it and believing it. And I think me saying it out loud could have been helpful. Like, I am beautiful or I am this. I think that's one piece that I missed because hearing it and then, you know, the other part that surprised me when you're hearing that you're beautiful and then you enter the real world and there's a different standard of beauty and then you all of a sudden don't fit it and you're like, oh, I guess I'm not. Like, so I didn't learn that till like 8th grade, 13, that I started realizing. I think I had just read Malcolm X's autobiography and I was like, oh, okay. So there are different pockets of people in America. And I obviously didn't realize it at the time, but there are different standards of beauty. And so maybe even learning my history a little bit earlier could have set me up a little bit better because then I was just shocked and hurt when, you know, I would like a boy and they wouldn't like me back. Or I would notice all my friends getting boyfriends and nobody would talk to me. And I'm like, oh, there's something wrong with me. I didn't know where that was coming from, and I never said it myself, like I am worthy or I'm beautiful. I also think about something else you said. I can't remember. Oh, I was thinking about, at least you talk to your daughter. My mom never said the word boy in front of the same sentence ever in front of my presence. And, you know, it was like, just don't talk to them. And it just was not a good strategy. Because, you know, you engage with, you know, guys would try to talk to you or whatever when you're older. And I just socially just ill-equipped. And I think about, man, somebody had just talked to me about relationships, you know, and I was a very smart child. Like, somebody could have just said, like, here's how boys should treat you, but I think they were just so petrified of even having
it happening so soon, so young. Yes.
But I needed that at like 11.
But you have to these days. I mean, my daughter's in the 3rd grade now, and even before she was in the 3rd grade, there's been boys that have liked her. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so if for me to not say anything, you know, and I know she recognizes something's going on. So, I mean, I'm like, I have to have conversation with her because I know if I don't have conversation with her, conversations are going to be had.
Absolutely. And Black women we are sexualized at such an early age. I distinctively remember being 13 and lying about my age and saying I was 16 to like a guy that was 18. 13. And I'm shocked now, but I'm like, because no one talked to me about it. And that's what my friends were doing. So, and it was exciting. Like, oh yeah, that older guy likes me. Somebody should have sat down my butt at 11, like, this is what you do or don't do. And this is how society's going to look at you differently than other bodies. But I think that's a missing piece, you know, like totally ill prepared at how mature my body was going to get and how quickly men were going to gravitate to it. Grown men gravitating to 13, 14, 15-year-old bodies, you know? So I'm glad that you're having those conversations with your daughter.
Yes.
Hopefully this helps give some advice to our listeners. And we talked about a lot of stuff, but how do you feel about it?
I feel good.
I feel like this is a great conversation. Another shout out to our guest producer, John Q, for sitting through the whole thing. We appreciate you. And with that note, I think we will call it a day. Thank you guys for listening. So, Saguinn, if our Central Florida listeners would like to meet with you at Safe Haven Therapy, how could they reach you?
Well, again, it's called Safe Haven Therapy, and my phone number is 407-468-7515.
And you are taking new clients?
I am taking new clients. I work on a sliding scale fee, so I'm not accepting insurance.
Okay, but sliding scale is great. Yes. And your practice is in
Apopka.
In Apopka, excellent. All right, well, make sure you check out Saguinn Johnson at Safe Haven Therapy. And yeah, talk to you guys later.